Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back once again to Phatkat Collections. Today I'm doing a live reaction video to another fantastic video that was recommended to me by my boy, James Perez. Happy holidays. James is one of my subscribers who actually has started a career in watch repair. So pretty cool that the passion of watches definitely overtook him, and now he's become a great resource for what you get for your money and just just about the mechanics of watches in general. So great resource, great person to have on the channel, and maybe someday we'll actually have him on the channel. So anyway, so he recommended this video. He said, hey, have you checked this out? He knows my, I guess, dislike for luxury brands, and I get it. Always buy what makes you happy, but my argument will always be that you have a lot of nonsense on YouTube, and a lot of guys who are grifters. Basically, they have their own interests, and they are recommending brands that they are affiliated with. Right now, I will always recommend any brand watch that a person just kind of discovers and really draws them in, right? So if it's something that you see that interests you and it makes you want to wear it, that's the watch for you, whether it be a Rolex or not. My whole gripe with the Rolex brand is that they are sort of living off this, I think, very dated. Remember, these are all my opinions. It doesn't mean they're 100% right, but these are opinions that I believe, is that the Rolex watch company is actually kind of living off an old name. And I feel like there was a time in history where the quality that you got from a Rolex watch was untouchable for, watches that were a fraction of the cost. And I feel like that quality it's just not the same as it used to be. It's still a fantastic quality watch, don't get me wrong. But in this video, this is from a guy from, I think it's called I Love Watches. I will put the link to his video in the description. I highly recommend you check out his channel. He's another level-headed, normal watch reviewer like myself. I'm sure we don't share the same taste in watches, because you guys know I like watches that are gigantic and regular normal size watches. So I'm pretty, I really don't discriminate. I wear pretty much any watch that I'll either, whether it's something I buy or something I collaborate on. I'm drawing my experience from over 460 watches in my collection. Again, not all comp, not all watches given to me. Watches were given to me, of course, with brand affiliates and brand collaborations, but a lot of watches I've bought on my own, right? And so I have a good idea of what to pull my opinions from, and it's really nice to see another guy on YouTube reviewing watches and being honest about it. So with this video, he basically put pictures from the Rolex website, to the best of my knowledge. You'll be the judge. I'm just going to react to his video. And what's really interesting is again, another person coming out. A lot of people have not come out and said what I've been saying about luxury watch brands. I've been doing this for over a decade, saying the same thing, that luxury watches are not the quality that people make them out to be. Sure, there is going to be differences, but when the way to really explain this in a nutshell is you pick up a luxury brand watch, whether it be Rolex, Omega, Grand Seiko, and you compare it to a Invicta or a Nubeo or a Bulova, and one does not make the other one feel like a shitter, as a lot of these guys like to call them. It's just in a more affordable watch, and of course under macro lens there should be a difference, but what we're going to find out, at least by this gentleman's video, that there is a difference, and it's just not what you're going to expect it to be. So let's play the video, and I'm just going to critique it as we go.
Have you ever wondered just how close San Martin gets to Rolex watches when it comes to finishing? If you have, well, you're going to want to stick around, because in today's video I'm going to be showing you this Rolex GMT Master 2 alongside the equivalent homage by San Martin, and I'm going to be showing you both of these watches in incredible detail. And
okay, so very cool. So other guys have done something like this before, but generally not quite in this fashion. This is coming from a normal guy, right? A normal watch collector. Whereas I've seen other guys put, watches under 200 times magnification, Rolex specifically. But a lot of times when they do that, they're not comparing it to anything else. I've always said, why not put both watches under magnification? When they put a Rolex under 200 times magnification with this very high-tech microscope, yeah, they're gonna nitpick it, and some guys have nitpicked it a little bit, but my argument has always been like, well, okay, you're putting the $20,000 watch under macro. Why don't you put the $100 watch under macro? Let's see if the differences that they're stating are there in the fit and finishing, are they really night and day difference? Are we going to look at one under a macro lens and have it look like a complete rough gravel road compared to the smooth finishing of a Rolex? I've yet to see anybody actually do that, but this gentleman is going to show you, not under a macro lens live, I guess, video camera, microscope of some sort, but he's going to put it under very high resolution shots, comparable to what you're going to find on the Rolex site and comparable to what he's going to show you with the Rolex watch itself.
Then we will know how close do San Martin get to Rolexes when it comes to finishing.
All right, so if you're new to watches, San Martin is, gotta let you guys know, San Martin is a brand of watches. It's a Chinese brand. And I've said many times, some folks have recommended San Martin. I don't have a San Martin. I have Addy's Dive, Pagani Design, brands like that, Steel Dive, I think are comparable San Martin. Some folks have said San Martin's better. I call BS on that. I think that it's a fantastic watch brand, but you do pay a little bit more of a premium for San Martin. The one he's going to show us here is a Rolex homage to a Submariner, black bezel, black face, your classic, most homaged watch out there, right? And this watch is about 300 pounds. Now, I've seen these watches for about $300 on sites like AliExpress, what else? Like DHgate, places like that. So depending on where you live and what currency you're purchasing these, the price may be different, but generally $300 to $400 is what you're going to pay for these San Martin brands. And again, I don't think even if you were to compare a San Martin to a Pagani that you're going to see this night and day difference as well. But we haven't done that, but let's see what this gentleman's going to do here.
Right, I'm going to kick things off with the Lume because, well, I've already produced a Lume degradation comparison video which I've posted on my second channel, link in the video description, but I do just want to show you some still shots from that video to, yeah, show you a comparison between the San Martin and the Lume.
It's to be noted, he'll probably mention this in the video, that the San Martin actually has an illuminated bezel, whereas the Rolex doesn't. So, of course, the San Martin in this picture is going to look like, wow, way more impressive, but just don't pay attention to that. Just look at the indices and hands.
On the Rolex, and I do think San Martin has the more impressive initial lume burst. I'm not looking at the bezel at all. I'm just looking at the applied indices and the hands. I do think the lume on the San Martin is a touch brighter. That is BGW9. Rolex, of course.
Now, I don't know if I agree with that. Based on this picture here, a couple things I, would like to mention too is a lot of times when you do real studies, real kind of real accurate testing, you'd want to list like what kind of light was used to produce these lume shots. Was these watches charged with UV light? If so, how long? Were they equally charged? But in my opinion, the difference between these two, regardless of how the watch was actually charged up, to me, I don't really necessarily think San Martin is a clear win. I think that they both are extremely comparable, and that's kind of the point of what I've been trying to make all these years, is that, yeah, even if one was a little bit brighter than the other, it's so close. Like, does one warrant an extra $10,000, $20,000? I think not. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Of course, has Chromolite, a special blend of luminescent materials, and, well, after a period of degradation, I called it a draw in that video. Some people were saying San Martin took the win, but I think it's too close to call, so I'm going to call.
All right, so I've watched this video already, but yeah, so I totally agree with him. I don't think San Martin it takes a win at all, and this is kind of the nitpicking a lot of folks do. Like if Rolex was a little brighter, folks be like, oh, the Rolex is superior lume, and really, I would call this a draw as well. They both have decent lume. Again, how long they last, lume is never something that I really consider much of a checkbox. And you might be saying, what is a checkbox? So checkbox, something I've kind of something that I always mention on this channel. It's just things to look for when buying a watch, right? And a lot of times people have a big long list of checkboxes. My list is really small. It's like, number one, do I like it? And I say that because am I buying it for me or for somebody else? A lot of people will buy luxury watches for the perception that you get from the perception of others. For me, I have to like it, right? If I like it, checkbox number one, taken care of. Number two, what is it made of? For me, 316 stainless steel. That's all you really need in construction on a watch. After that, what kind of movement? After that, really slight after that. I wouldn't even consider one of my checkboxes the crystal. It may be for you. It's just not for me. But we'll get back to that.
Call it a draw, but what does irritate me about Rolex Lume is what they claim on their website. They claim the lume on this watch is a brilliant white during the day. Well, I took some photos of both watches side by side outside, and I can tell you without doubt the lume on the Rolex during the day is not a brilliant white. It's more of a lavender.
So I just want to make a correction here. He's calling the Lume during the day. Watches don't have Lume during the day. I think he's kind of referring to, because there is no luminescence during the day, right? But I think what he means is Rolex is referring to their watch as bright white. And if we go off what we see in the picture, I think most people, and everybody's eyes are different too. So when we say bright white, most people I think are going to say, oh, well, which one's whiter, right? Like a bright white smile, right? You got those yellow ass teeth, off-white, or these bright white veneers. I think if we're going to state which one's actually a little whiter, I could see that the San Martin, I see what he's saying, might be a little bright white. Remember, bright that's a subjective term. So what one person may consider bright white is just a way to describe the white. So I don't really think Rolex is necessarily wrong in referring to theirs being a bright white, because one person, if you weren't comparing it to San Martin, might say that is bright white. But compare it to something which is a little bit whiter, right? Then you might say, oh, well, this is bright white. Well, it's just a shade. It is subjective. And side by side, there really wouldn't be. I'm not going to give any clear winner here, because one might prefer something a little more off-white, right? So,
although the San Martin doesn't have brilliant white lume either, it's definitely more white than the Rolex.
And this is nitpicking. I mean, both these watches are, in my opinion, bright white. I mean, I don't know what this gentleman would be looking for in a watch if you don't consider this is white, right? We'll just call it white. Bright, not bright, slightly white. It's just kind of ridiculous to even kind of mention, but I get what he's saying. This is trying to do a fair comparison, right?
I don't know how Rolex gets away with this. How can anyone say that is a brilliant white? That is shocking.
I don't think that's really shocking. I think brilliant is an adjective, right? And what brilliant might be to me might be different to somebody else. So I think that's going a little bit too far in the comparison here. I'm going to defend Rolex a little bit here. I think they're both a bright white, and I think they both are very legible.
But to be honest, I'm not surprised, because their Instagram account is just full of computer-generated images, I suspect because the real watches just don't hold up to their standards in real life. And they don't really want you to see macro shots of their watches. And
I tend to agree with that. And this is just like, I'm going to go back to like the fitness industry here. You cannot believe anything you see. I mean, you see chicks posting on Instagram, and I'm not just picking on the ladies here. The things you see on Instagram are touched up, edited. By the time, like dating apps, not that I've used any of those, not in a long time. But anyway, like generally people are going to put their best foot forward, and I get that. But it's almost like a bait and switch to me. And again, these are my opinions, and I'm not just picking on Rolex here, but any brand. I'll go back to like Instagram with the fitness influencers. When you look at a lot of these guys, if you were to meet them in person, you'd be like, wow, this guy looks totally different than the way he does posing with this amazing build. They're on their perfect down lighting. It's not like they're like, hey, take my picture, and let me get in the light a little bit. They're really putting time and effort into getting these perfect shots where their abs are shown just right. And a lot of times I feel if you met these folks in person, you would not be as impressed. You'd be like, wow, that dude's pretty small, or wow, and I don't mean that to be, I'm not a big guy either, right? I don't, there's nothing wrong with being short, fat, skinny, whatever makes you happy. It's not for me to judge, right? But I do feel like a lot of times when you see these influencers, you see these amazing pictures, and you see them in person, you're like, wow, yeah, he has abs, but not like what we see. And with AI and these, the way to digitally alter people, I mean, I'll tell you, I got like, I'm not going to point to anybody personal in my life, but there are some ladies from the past that I've known that's like, whoa, you don't look like that at all in person, right? And so it's like false advertising, in my opinion, a lot of times. And not just about Instagram or in the fitness industry, but we'll just flip right over to like leather jackets. Another thing I collect. Like, you have to be so careful when you buy a Python jacket. I can't tell you the number of sellers I'll email on Amazon or eBay saying, hey, that's a beautiful jacket. Can you send me the actual picture of the jacket? Because they're posting pictures of the real jacket and then saying, oh, well, we're going to make the same thing for you. It's bait and switch mentality. I feel like this is, I do agree with what this gentleman's saying, that their watches really don't live up. They're mass-produced watches, in my opinion, and I just don't think that they're, I don't think they're all that special.
I'm about to prove that with the bezel inserts because I've taken some close-ups of the transitions between the two colours on the San Martin and the Rolex, and undoubtedly the San Martin has that more crisp transition from black to blue. The Rolex is really quite fuzzy, and yet we go onto their website and they show us an altered computer generated picture of one of their Cerachrome bezel inserts, and on the top, look how crisp that defining line is. That's unbelievable. On the sides, yeah, quite fuzzy like it is in real life. Right, let's take a look at the polishing on the sides.
All right, but really, does it matter? I mean, honestly, who in their right mind, and I say in their right mind, like, again, I know I say, like, buy what makes you happy, but who in their right mind is going to look at that on a bezel and say, oh, look at under this close-up shot how crisp the line is. Like, even if that was actually accurate and that was actually what the watch looked like, to the naked eye, like, who cares? Like, you're not seeing that. Are you going to go around with a magnifying glass, like, showing your watch off people? It's absolutely ridiculous to me. And I feel like these are manufacturer desires. And I feel like Rolex is an extremely amazing brand in their marketing. They're an amazing marketing company because they have convinced people to spend tens of thousands of dollars on stainless steel watches. It's unbelievable to me. Kudos to them for that, just not for what kind of watches they're producing.
Of the case, and the Rolex has some pretty obvious streaking, some vertical streaking. The San Martin polishing is better, isn't it? It just is. And again, I'm not surprised because San Martin cases are polished with lapping machines that have tin plates on them. That's also known as Zaratsu polishing. Now, I'm not saying their cases are finished to the same standards as Grand Seiko watches because, well, the Grand Seiko artisans have been doing Zaratsu polishing for years, and I'm sure San Martin are relatively new to it, but boy, oh boy, do San Martin finish their cases seriously well, and I think this is just evidence of that, isn't it? And I'm really quite disappointed with the finishing on the Rolex.
I mean, yeah, not really. I'm not really I'm not disappointed in that because if you paid $10,000, I know they're more, but let's just pick the number, $10,000 plus for a Rolex watch, like, and your expectation is, like, you're paying for these differences, and they're just not there. So, and I don't know who in their right mind would pay money for these differences that you can't even see with the naked eye. Like, it's absolutely absurd to me. It really is. And I feel like this is just something that it's a way to market why their watches are so much better. But based on what this gentleman's showing, they're not. It's really not true. I mean, I don't want to say false advertising here, but I mean, based on what this is showing, what people are expecting one thing, and they're getting another, right? So I don't know, just really quite awful.
That is, yeah, really quite a surprise. Here's a close-up of some applied indexes, and yeah, in my honest opinion, well, I just prefer the finish on the San Martin. The corners are more crisp, the flat surfaces are flatter, the lume appears to be flatter. The lume seems to marry up to the inside of the applied index more evenly.
I agree. It definitely, to me, if we're going to look at, like, I guess the crispness between where the lume stops and the stainless starts, like, yeah, based on these pictures here, the San Martin does look of more precise finishing, but, like, who cares, you know?
Just looks more.
But the person who should care is the person spending $10,000 for a watch. I just find this asinine to even be. I'm not saying this gentleman's asinine. I'm saying this is asinine that people even worry about this on a watch, you know, but that's the thing. Rolex is charging so much for their watch. They have to create a reason for why the watch costs so much. And frankly, they create the reason, but based on these pictures, I'm just not seeing the difference.
Crisp, it just looks better quality. Yes, the Rolex has white gold applied indexes. Who cares? Honestly, I think they need to be better than this. Let's not forget.
Yeah, I mean, for what you're paying, absolutely. And white gold indexes, like, who cares? Like, they're under crystal. There's no advantage to white gold other than the fact of saying white gold. And I feel like, again, that's another way to rationalize charging more. Oh, we use white gold, so white gold's more expensive. Well, yeah, it is, but it's not, for the amount of gold in there, doesn't warrant that price increase, right? I mean,
get the San Martin, £300. The Rolex retails for $9,300.
They probably have like an extra $400 or $500 worth of gold, if even that, based on weight, in their watches. But they're thousands and thousands of dollars more than a San Martin. So
50, but you're going to pay 12 to 13 grand for this watch. Oh, and this applied index on the Rolex has some damage on it. Look, yeah, an imperfection there, which somehow managed to get through their quality control checks. Right, here's the polishing on the polished links on their bracelets. Of course, the Rolex watch has been worn for a couple of years, so it's going to look more worn, and it does. But what I'm focusing on here is the edge of that bright reflection. This is a shot I've taken many times to show either good or bad polishing, and what we're looking at here is the crispness of that line, the smoothness of it.
Yeah, I see what he's saying, but I think a more fair comparison here would be to see a brand new Rolex, because I know what he's stating here, the crispness of the line, but no matter what, fine scratches or not, like that, if you're wearing a watch, like everything's going to get scratched up, even if you can't see it to the naked eye. And I just don't mean scratches, like that finishing will change as you wear it. That crispness of that line will change, even on the Addies dive. So again, not really a fair comparison, but I do understand what he's stating. I would like to have seen a brand new Rolex, but and this is probably the problem with something like this. This is a fantastic video, but the problem is you're going to have the Rolex fanboys come out and say he doctored the photos, he lied about it, that Rolex is super worn, you know, they'll make excuses. I feel like Rolex owners, and no offense to anybody, but I feel like Rolex owners, there are the two types of Rolex owners. The ones who are like, hey, I bought it because I just want that name. I just wanted that achievement of getting something expensive on my wrist. And then there's Rolex owners who they act like battered housewives, right? Who are just abused in awful relationships, and they just make excuses for their abuser. Like, that's really what it is. No, my watch is, this is excuse after excuse on why the watch is superior, even when there's clear evidence that, it's not, right?
And, again, it looks better on the San Martin. Now I'm going to show you the gaps between the bezel inserts and the crystals, and there is quite a big sort of gap on the Rolex, isn't there? It just looks a bit more untidy.
Nobody likes anything gapped out. Nobody.
I am ignoring the dust and debris that is on the Rolex because, again, this watch has been worn for a couple of years. So, of course, it's going to look dirtier. But if we just focus on, how that gap looks, again, I just think it looks tidier on the San Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that statement, but remember that it's not really a super fair comparison. The San Martin looks amazing, but remember, under the naked eye, you're not really going to notice that gap in the Rolex. And in Rolex's defense here, even if the Rolex, when this was brand new off the line, let's say it matched the San Martin perfectly, when you wear these and you bang them on things, you might throw that out of alignment a little bit, right? So it's not really a super fair comparison, but again, even if it was absolutely perfect, and even if this was a draw, right? Does it warrant $10,000 more, right? Or whatever, it's just kind of ridiculous.
It's like they've got the bezel closer to the crystal. On the Rolex, the gap seems too big. Right.
And again, in defense, maybe this gentleman who had this watch bumped it, banged it, threw it out of alignment, something like that. I'm just trying to make an excuse for the Rolex as to why it would look like that. And I don't mean the gouging that we saw. I just mean that, we want to be a little more fair. We want to give the Rolex a little more of a benefit of the doubt here because it is a worn Rolex, right?
This next one, I don't think it's obvious. I don't think there's a clear winner. So yeah, I'm going to let you guys take a look and decide for yourselves. Which is the San Martin and which is the Rolex? Are you ready for the answer to be revealed? There it is. Did you get it?
Yeah, so of course, you will have people make an excuse for why even this photo, which you can't tell the difference. Some folks who want to be those who were lucky enough to get that 50-50 shot and choose the Rolex on the right would be yep, I knew it, this is why. But if they would have chose the other one, my point is there's probably equal number of people who would have chose the other side, right? A better representation here would have been to just cut out a square of the stainless steel here, and then repeated this over and over again on several different shots, and then come to a conclusion at the end. Maybe ask a person which one's San Martin, which one's Rolex, over and over again. And at that point, I think you'll find that it's very difficult to tell the difference between either of these because there really is no difference.
Right. What about this one? This one's probably a bit more obvious because, again, the Rolex has been worn. So, yeah, the Rolex on the right, San Martin on the left, but honestly, not a lot in it, is there? These are the case backs, by the way. You're looking at the transition from the brushing to the polishing. Here's the print. Yes, the print on the San Martin dial is thicker. It's thicker on the minute track. It's just generally thicker, but I don't think the edges edges are any less crisp. I'll give it to Rolex just because their print is more fine.
See, and that's kind of the problem with the the Rolex fanboys, is that he's given, like in this argument here, he's stating, well, I'm going to give it to the Rolex because the print is more fine. But that's going with the assumption that finer print is better, right? A person may prefer the print above. And if Rolex made the print fat like the top picture here, then the fanboys be like, oh, it's much better because it's easier to read. Like, you'll never win this argument, because at one point, this is totally subjective. Some people are going to like the crispness, the smaller, thinner lettering. Other people are going to like the fatter stuff. If Rolex made it fatter, the Rolex fanboys would be saying that the fatter print is superior, right? And so there is no clear winner here at all on this particular photo. They're both nice, crisp edges, even under this resolution.
Guess, and I'm sure that is more difficult to do, but yeah, in terms of the actual quality of the edges of the print, well, I don't think there's a lot in it really. Here's a close-up of the bezel inserts. I was looking to see how well finished they are. They look to be about the same. It's obvious which is which, because obviously the Rolex has very deeply cut markers on the bezel insert. But yeah, I'm looking at that transition from light to dark, and well, it looks about the same, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the transition between light to dark there, in all honesty, folks are going to say the Rolex looks more crisp. That's because it's recessed. Now, I will give, as far as cosmetics, I will definitely give it to Rolex on that, because I prefer a recessed, deep cut marker on the bezel, right? And that's hence one of the reasons why I bought a Pagani design over the Invicta when I was choosing the yellow gold version. They had recessed markers, which, again, that's just a design aspect. Like, it doesn't really mean one's better. It's just a personal preference.
Looking at the gaps, or the lack of gaps, between the lugs and the end links, and on both watches, I mean, the end link fit is sensational. Yeah. Here I've zoomed in.
Absolutely sensational. So this is something referred to as fit and finishing. I always thought that in my earlier days was like how it fits on your wrist, right? But no, they're talking about how well each link aligns up. Are they out of alignment? Are they crisp? And I honestly, I don't know, of 460 watches in my collection, I don't know of any watch that's crooked. I really don't. I mean, it is such nitpicking. It's actually incredible. I mean,
to the hour hand, I do think the hour hand on the Rolex is cut better. The hand just looks finer, you know, more delicate. Yeah, it is a better.
It looks like it's a thinner cut
to hand, although on this,
he's gonna say he said it's a better hand. Just because one is thinner does not mean it's a better hand. To the naked eye, you are not going to tell the difference in these hands with the naked eye. Absolutely. So one isn't really better. It's just personal preference. People who look at the Rolex, who are Rolex fans, are gonna be like, oh, well, the Rolex better because it's thinner. But if like you had a thin hand on two watches that were completely nameless, some folks would say, oh, well, thicker hands, more durable, right? So it's just making excuses for the price of a Rolex.
Particular watch, there is an imperfection, a scratch on the end of the hand. I don't see how that could have been done after this watch was sold. I don't see anybody taking this 2-year-old Rolex apart and damaging the end of that hour hand.
So that's right from the factory there, right? So this is under the glass. That scratch came from the factory. So I hear it all the time, the quality control of Rolex. Well, this isn't quality control to me. I mean, this is not inspected with a jeweler's loupe for imperfections. Like, this came off the line. So you draw a conclusion from that.
Oh yeah, this Rolex was supplied, I suspect, with damage or a scratch on the end of the hour hand, which again is quite disappointing. Here we're looking at the gaps between the bezel inserts and the bezels on the outer edge, that is, and yeah, I think the Rolex is better. It's just a smaller, tidier gap, isn't it?
Again, I wouldn't. When I look at the finishing of these watches and how the precision, the gap, right? Just because the Rolex is smaller doesn't mean it's better. San Martin, here's how these Chinese companies work. San Martin will look at this and say, if they see it, they probably will look at this and say, oh, yep, next year's generation will make that gap smaller. It's like whatever the Rolex fanboy comes up with to complain about or to defend their brand, these companies will just be like, yep, we'll just make it tighter next time. and not charge you 13 grand for the watch.
The San Martin is still good. It's not a huge gap,
Absolutely.
but yeah, it is bigger than it is on the Rolex. Right, guys. Yeah, what do you make of all that? Let me know in the comments section. No doubt there will be absolutely 100% Rolex fanboys up in arms, accusing me of altering the pictures, swapping them over. I don't know, they'll be making all sorts of excuses, no doubt. But I always in these sorts of videos try to just show pictures that, well, don't need me to try and sway you one way or the other. I think the pictures speak for themselves, don't they? Yeah, I'm not trying to influence you either way, to be honest. I'm just showing you close-up pictures of the finishing on both of these watches, and I do think the results are fairly clear to see. Now, of course, I could continue and take more pictures.
See, and this is exactly what, you know, brands. This is why. What's unfortunate about YouTube is, like, even when you look at Invicta, right? And I'm not just, you guys know I like Invicta, but I like all watch brands. It's and I don't mean it to sound like I don't like Rolex. I get why people would want it. And if I ever, you know, won the Powerball and was like, all right, I'm just gonna piss away 20 grand on a watch, you know, I just don't think like that, I guess. And I just don't. I look for value in brands, and there's so many great brands out there. Whatever it is, stereos, watches. I hear the arguments on all the time. Doesn't matter what you collect. This cologne's better than this because it costs $300 a bottle. At least with cologne, sometimes there is an element of truth to that because the oils are the concentration's better. It's oilier, right? But not always. I mean, there's inexpensive brands from a lot of these Dubai houses that are better than sometimes the original one they're trying to replicate. So, you know, you just have to give each product a fair shake, and I just don't think like that. I value. I guess because I'm not rich, so I don't really feel the need to impress people by spending a ton of money on a Rolex or on Creed Aventus when there's so many great. I can smell great, look great, which is subjective, but most important thing is feeling good about what you're doing. And when you look in the mirror, do you see what you like? And that's all that really matters. A lot of folks do buy this brand because of the perception of others. So, but always, I mean, if it means something to you and you want to get it, a lot of these are gifted down. You know, I mean, by all means, you can gift down anything. You know, but I don't know. I just don't think like with that mindset of spending $10,000 to plus $1,000 on a watch or so many other things. I'd rather have another car, right? And you know, it's just I find it ridiculous.
If I did take pictures of things like the movement and all sorts of stuff, no doubt the Rolex would eventually come out on top.
And I don't agree with that. Yeah, I think if you pull the case back off of the Rolex and compare it to like an NH35, it's probably in this San Martin. You know, yeah, I don't think you're going to pull the case back off and have this, whoa, that's a crazy difference. I think that there's differences on why maybe the Rolex movement is better in some ways, but ultimately at the end of the day, they all tell time reasonably well. And if you want to regulate in an H35, you can get it within awfully close, if not on par with Rolex specifications as far as accuracy. So, but who's going to regulate? Who's going to pay to regulate a watch unless you are a watch guy yourself who knows how to work on watches? You know, or, you know, some people do, I don't know, some people, it's like kind of, for instance, here, I'll compare it to this. It's like trying to tune a Honda Accord from 2000, right? My Honda Accord from 2000 came with 150 horsepower. Yeah, I've inched it up maybe 5 horsepower with exhaust and intake and a header, but it's not a race car. And so you can have so many cars come off the line that are superior in performance. You know, brand new Honda, you know, it can't compete. So it's kind of like, I feel like regulating an affordable watch is spending money to just to do it, right? There's really no point to it because ultimately they all tell time reasonably well.
But it shouldn't be this close. I don't think this £300 San Martin should be getting anywhere close to the Rolex. It has blown my mind.
See, and this doesn't blow my mind at all because if you've ever held a Rolex and you've ever actually looked at what you're getting, a lot of times people make these judgments based on what they read on Reddit, what they read on or what they hear from other watch snobs about, oh, you can't compare. It's because in their small minds, they can't understand. Like, they just won't accept the fact that there's markup, a lot of markup with luxury brands. They think it's about quality, that, oh, that's why they cost that, because they're superior. But anybody with common sense who's being honest can pick up affordable watches and luxury watches and say, yeah, you're paying for the name. That's really what people are going to say, right? That's really, if you're being honest, that's really the gist of it.
That they are even close, let alone beating them in a number of key areas.
And I wanted to mention, too, pulling the case back off, you know, there are super fakes coming out in that $600 to $800 price range that are fooling A&Ds, Rolex A&Ds that are fooling Rolex certified repair guys. I don't know what they're actually called, but they're being able to pass them off because the movements are so good now, and so they've been cloned in such a high level of precision, they're fooling the professionals. So again, I've said it many times, my catchphrase, if it's that easy to replicate, it wasn't that important, it wasn't that special in the first place. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Is like Lume and the bezel insert. I mean, that is shocking. Polishing as well. Please, really? Come on, Rolex. This is unbelievable. Honestly, the more I look at Rolex watches, the more I just hate the brand. I love their watches, though. It's a real shame because I love their designs. Their designs are...
I hate the brand, love the designs. So this part makes no sense to me. If you love the design, then there's hundreds of different choices, right? I mean...
iconic. I love the Submariner. I love this GMT Master 2. I love their watches. I'd love to own their watches.
Why? Why would you love to own their watches? If you just looked at a San Martin and saw the quality, if we based it on what we've seen here, that the quality's better, the finishing is better for a fraction of the price, you love the style. The San Martin, there's hundreds of watches that look exactly like it. So there's no style there, right? It's been replicated so many times by so many different brands. Why would one want one? Why would you look at this and say, I want one? It doesn't make any sense to me. And this is what's incredible about Rolex, though, because even when you have the evidence clear in your face, like this guy has presented the evidence, he still wants one. So that's quite amazing, honestly. It's like Rolex has got folks under their spell, and it is to be commended.
But, yeah.
All right, that's it. I'm done. So let me know what you think of that video. I'm going to try to do more of these kind of reaction videos. I'm using a new software here. Bear with me while I learn. It's, pretty basic. But do let me know what you think. Do drop a comment. Let me know if you have Rolex watches. Let me know if you have, a San Martin or any of the other brands. What I'd love to see this guy do now is compare the San Martin. I don't know if he's probably got the Rolex on own, but I'd love to see him do the same format with the San Martin, since it seems like he owns it, with the Pagani, with Invicta. Let's see the real differences. Maybe there are some huge differences between, again, under macro lens, between a San Martin and an Invicta Pro Diver. Maybe the Pagani. It'd be really cool to see that. And then people would absolutely know like what they're getting. And then at least if you're paying, 300 pounds in this case for a watch, and you're paying $69 for an Invicta Pro Diver, you'll know that, hey, this San Martin is finished a lot better, and that's why I can warrant spending 300 pounds for, as opposed to 80 bucks, right? So, but so far, evidence like this just, again, solidifies my stance on why I would never own a luxury watch, right? It ain't about money. I'd go buy one tomorrow. I'd go buy several tomorrow. But I just never would. They wouldn't bring me anything. There would be no return on my investment with how I feel about wearing it. But anyway, always buy what makes you happy. Buy what you like. As always, subscribe to the channel. Happy holidays and take care.